What's up, everyone? Welcome back into another Grizz Game Day update. This time, the Grizzlies are at home. I know it feels like it's been a while. I'm Kelsey. That is Mike, and today's video is presented by Bally Sports Southeast. Mike, this is kind of an interesting, fun game. It could not have been pictured better because last night, Ja Morant got introduced to the world as a first-time All-Star, a starter. And then today, the Grizzlies will take on kind of the last remaining member of the grit and grind era of the Memphis Grizzlies. Mike Conley comes to town with the Utah Jazz. Tip-off is at 7 o'clock. And before we get to anything, Mike, let's do a quick injury report. Tyus Kyle Dillon still out. And for the Jazz, they could be without two of their biggest players. Rudy Gobert is out, and Donovan Mitchell is questionable right now. So the Jazz, on a 3-game losing streak, lost the last 9 of 11 games. And the Grizzlies on the complete opposite end. They have overtaken the number 3 spot in the West. They're up 2.5 games. So coming into this game, what are we looking for from the Memphis Grizzlies, especially with Utah being out possibly 2 of their main guys? We know that the last time these two teams played, the Grizzlies won by 1. It was a big game. And you look at the box score, it was Jaren, Ja, and Dez who had big games. They were all almost, 20, 30 points. We've got the same guys tonight for the Grizzlies.
And you really should have the same formula. I think that game, I was there, I was in Salt Lake City for that game on the radio call. And, I have vivid memories of that game because I think that game, when you look back and say, how did the Grizzlies get to this point where they are? That game foreshadowed everything that we're seeing in this team right now. That threesome that you mentioned, Ja, Jaren, obviously, and, when you talk about Desmond Bane and his ascension, that was the night where they all put it together. And Jaren hit a tremendous shot late in that game to help lead us to the victory. And I also remember right after the game, Dwayne Wade, who's now a part owner of the Utah Jazz, came over to the Grizzlies locker room after the game. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even the Grizzlies locker room. It was the opposing team's weight room where Jaren and those guys were lifting weights right after that game. And Dwayne came in there and said, man, this is a big shot team. This team is not afraid. And, I just remember how that night showed what the Grizzlies are now. Mm-hmm. And they're going to need that same formula, obviously, Ja, Jaren, Desmond, and hope for a couple of other guys to carry them through coming off that bench. That's what I see. Utah is going to be shorthanded. The Grizzlies are shorthanded. But I think it's no fluke that the Grizzlies are in the position that they're in. We'll see what Utah can do to try to get right.
Now, look, both teams are shorthanded, but it's some rotation players for the Grizzlies, and it is the 2 stars for Utah Jazz. We look at the last time these two teams played. It was Rudy Gobert, who had 23 points, 13 rebounds. He's out tonight, so you can take that off the table. And you look at, these two teams are both top 5 rebounding teams. They are top 10 points in the paint teams, but Rudy Gobert is out. Now, that doesn't mean that the Grizzlies are going to have a cakewalk when it comes to being in the paint. They still have Whiteside, they still have O'Neal, they still have Pascal. They still have guys who can rebound, who can score from the paint. And they do have that veteran leader in Mike Conley, who had 19, 4, and 8 last time these two teams played. But it should be a little bit of an easier feat for this team. And I'm wondering who you think, if we take Ja off the table, All-Star Ja, we know he's going to come in. He just got announced All-Star. He's going to come in and have a big game. Take Ja off the table. Who else needs to step up tonight, and have that big game for the Grizzlies, especially with their 2 stars out?
I think this is going to be a game where I want to see how Ziaire Williams bounces back, because he's had a couple of games where his shot hasn't been falling. He's kind of been erratic. He kind of, regressed to the mean after having some really, really phenomenal games when he first came back from his injury, from his ankle situation. So I think he's like an X factor there. Jaren Jackson, I feel confident that he's going to be the defensive presence and anchor that we need. Ja, you said take him off the table. Desmond Bane is pretty consistent. He doesn't fear the Utah. As a matter of fact, his coming out party was a playoff series last year where he hit the shot, turned around, and mouthed off at the Utah guys. And, you knew Desmond was a tough guy in that point. So those 3 guys I know are going to get theirs. But can Ziaire Williams step up and take advantage of that opportunity to be that next guy who can have an impact? And we'll see. I will say this, though, Kelcey, as much as Rudy Gobert had a solid game and solid stats against the Grizzlies in that game, Hassan Whiteside made some plays in that game that were very disruptive because of his length and his athleticism to cover ground and also be a finisher. So we'll see how that matchup works out, because Hassan, when he's on, he's a very productive big, and we'll see how he factors in from that standpoint, working alongside Mike Conley.
All right, here's my next question for you. Fast break points. The Grizzlies have led in this category in the NBA the last almost 3 years. They were top 3. The Grizzlies are number 1 right now. On the other side, the Utah Jazz, they like to slow it down a lot. Again, we talk about veterans. Veterans love to play that half-court game. They're 27th in the league in fast break points. How can the Grizzlies take advantage of this?
Yeah, I mean, what you want to do is force turnovers, and that's going to be difficult because Mike Conley is a short-handed point guard. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, in terms of turning the ball over from that standpoint. How do you get to fast break points? You get block shots, you get defensive stops, you get, turnovers, at the top of the key. So force the 2-on-1s, the 3-on-2s. So hopefully the Grizzlies can get back to doing that and dictate it with the pace. You don't want to see Utah slow it down. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert are instrumental in their slowdown game. They don't have those two guys there possibly tonight or likely tonight. So what we look at is how can Utah keep up with the Grizzlies? I think that's the question. Can they score enough points? Can they find enough offense and knock down enough threes to be able to neutralize what the Grizzlies can do? And Ja's going to put on the show because this is his another coming out party for him. And, he deserves every single accolade he gets for what he's shown this season.
All right, here's my last question for you, Mike. You have to play devil's advocate because I know people watching this, I look at the comments are like, wow, we love talking about the other team. Very cool. You have to put on a little Jazz hat right now, just for a second. Put your Grizzly stuff back on. If you're the Jazz, take away Mike Conley. Who do you need to have step up if you're going to have a shot at winning this game without 2 of your superstars?
I mean, you're going to have, you have to have, Ingles, Bogdanovich, those guys. And I'm not sure what their injury status is because some of those guys have been in and out. But you're going to need a Royce O'Neal type that could be a Swiss Army knife. You're going to need one of those 3 that I just mentioned to have. And Bogdanovich had one of those kind of games against the Grizzlies. Like the guy would not miss shots. And, if he can do that and knock down those threes, then that neutralizes some of the Grizzlies a little bit. But that's what I want to do. I want to get Mike Conley rolling downhill into his floater game. Ja Morant never gets into foul trouble, but Mike Conley has enough shiftiness and savviness to put Ja in a little bit of a bind in terms of that. So I would dictate with Ja. I would go at Ja if I'm the Utah Jazz and try to get him in a physical defensive assignment and also get him to be handsy when it comes to that. So we'll see, because that's the other thing about the Grizzlies too. Force somebody else to handle the basketball. And what I don't see teams doing to Memphis enough is trapping guys when Ja Morant is out of the game. The Grizzlies don't have a natural backup point guard, and they get away with it for so long. Will the Jazz make that adjustment and see if they can force the Grizzlies into some turnovers? We'll see.
And that's saying we don't have a natural backup point guard while Tyus is out. When Tyus is back, put the ball in his hands. We are happy with that. But yes, Tyus, Kyle, Dylan still out. Mike, this has been great. Guys, the tip-off is at 7:00 tonight. Come to FedEx Forum. We want to see you guys. You can get your tickets at grizzlies.com or 901-888-HOOP or tune in 7:00 on Valley Sports Southeast.